We're at the IAS meeting in Vancouver. We're here with Gottfried Hirnschall, with the World Health Organization Director of the HIV and Hepatitis work that's being done at the World Health Organization. And we very much appreciate you being here because you are, I think we just talked a little about, alluded to it, that this is the time where your work becomes most obvious and most important. Because, you know, having all the programs, the 90-90-90, are important, but now we have to implement. And tell us how that will roll out, how that will happen.
Well, indeed, this conference here in Vancouver is, I would call it a landmark conference because it has given us some new science that obviously now need to be acted upon. And WHO's role is, or one of WHO's role is of course to translate the science into policy, and that's policy guidance, and that's what we are doing right now. We are working on developing the next generation of the ARV guidelines that clearly will move to a treat-all approach, where obviously countries that have already moved to embracing the 500 CD4 as their threshold, to now move to the next level, and that is treat-all. And as much as we are very enthusiastic here about in the conference about the science and the opportunities that it obviously creates, the realities on the ground still need to be sorted out. Mm-hmm. And there is obviously a discussion about who's going to pay for this. Mm-hmm. And clearly, nothing comes for free, and also to add more people on treatment will also add additional costs. There's obviously ways of maximizing the use of the resources that are already being made available, but clearly more resources will be needed. In countries that have high burden, such as many sub-Saharan African countries, it will also mean that health systems need to be further strengthened, mm-hmm. because many more people will need to get the services. So there are implications that we discussed a little bit here in the context of the conference, but a lot of this will have to happen at country level to really move forward. Another important aspect, really, if we talk about 90-90-90, is that people need to know their status. And globally, we know that only 50% of those people who are estimated to be HIV positive do know that they are HIV positive. And
is that a worldwide estimate?
Yeah, that's a global number. And obviously there's variations across the globe and in different countries. And there's also different strategies for testing. But in many places, the approach to testing will also have to be reviewed and reconsidered, if indeed people should be able to enter treatment.
And relative to the risk as well. There was some that said everyone should be tested at least once, but then they're dependent upon the risk, the individual risk, it would be more.
That's exactly the issue. A lot of testing as such is happening, and a lot of tests are being done globally, but often those people who have the greatest risk of being HIV positive do not get the test, mm-hmm. because they are what we call key populations, and they may not be part of the services, they may be stigmatized, and they don't come forward for testing. And sometimes the testing approaches are limited to the health services where not everybody goes to. And even there are lots of, I would say, gaps in providing to testing. So overall, clearly, a better approach, a more strategic approach to testing will be needed. And again, that's something that should be a strong emphasis over the next few years.
My question at the press conference, I think it was that press conference, was on the health economics and so forth, and the cost savings must be huge, because if we were to say, okay, we have the money to do it, we're just going to do it now, everyone's going to be tested, everyone's going to either be on treatment or PrEP, whatever, would be an amazing moment. Think of the lives that would be saved. Think of the health disparities that would be saved, the people in desperate situations all over. But that isn't going to happen. But you are what I would call an emissary to the reality of the situation as you know it through science, to the countries. Then, and how does that play out? Do you actually engage in discussions? Do you use other people from countries which have done good work and drag them along and say, your country ought to be doing this too. Look at what we've done here. You use a demonstration of the good work that was done in other countries. Is that the way it works?
It certainly is an important role for WHO to play with our key partners, UNAIDS being one, PEPFAR obviously having a strong presence in countries, to really not just do these global guidelines, it's an important piece, but then really work with the countries to say, what does this mean for us to make these policy changes, to make some difficult decisions about prioritizing, because it is about resources, it is about money, and then to implement it. And that's obviously where we see ourselves as having an important role. The economic argument there is obviously one that comes into play. And making sort of these calculations, building on an investment case in countries is very important. So that's exactly what's happening in countries. Again, happening together with partners, again, UNAIDS being a very important one. And more and more countries make those right decisions. And obviously, we are also using those countries as champion countries to say, look at South Africa moving forward. Look at Brazil, a country that makes really incredible headways. Look at Thailand. So there's many countries that are showing the way, and that obviously influences others.
And it seems as though the middle-income countries are the ones that are most challenged, because many people who make still in that country, that albeit that the country is classified as a middle-income country, there are people with literally $1 a day income who have no chance of getting treatment such as HIV or hepatitis C, it's like just way beyond their reach, and yet they're left to fend for themselves, so to speak, instead of having a global or a countrywide approach.
Yeah, that's exactly true, and as you say, not everybody who lives in a middle-income country has a middle-range income. There's a lot of people who are very quite poor in those countries and also deprived from the services. So the focus obviously needs to be on those, and to get them into the services is the challenge.
Well, I appreciate your being here, and I hope, I certainly wish you well with the work you have to do, daunting as it might be, and any support that we can help from the media. Certainly, I know that we're all here, everyone that's in this conference is engaged and ready to do the marching that's necessary. So we ask our audience to bear with us, but also to give support wherever it might be needed.
No, thanks.
And whenever you ask for to sign a document or something that would maybe bring us further to that goal, we would certainly hope that people would do that as well.
No, I thank you very much for the offer, and clearly I think this conference will go in history as a landmark conference. I think the science to really suggest that everybody needs treatment and should be able to access treatment as quickly as possible is now there. We also are looking forward to the next conference next year in Durban, where I'm sure there will be a lot more discussion around what does this then mean at the country level, the country realities, where then countries will come forward and say, well, this is what we're doing, this is how we are doing it, and this is how far we were able to go.
Thank you so very much,
Thank you very
Gottfried.
much. Thank you.